All right, we are back with another Pick'em video. Going to be talking my favorite plays for Monday Night Football. We got 2 games, which just means more value, more lines to look at, which is awesome. And I think I have a player in every single team tonight, so all 4 teams are at least going to be represented in some way, which is kind of fun. If you're watching a game, you want to, an offense or whatever it is, you want to be rooting for at least one guy. So going to bring you guys 5 plays, break down the hit rates, the market value, the game script, all these different things that go into how I make my plays. And then, we'll wrap things up at the end there. But if you're new around here, definitely go ahead and subscribe. Leave the video a like, comment something down below. It's just going to tell YouTube, hey, push this video out a little bit more. I like what this guy does. I like how he makes his picks. So let's just jump right into the PrizePicks screen. We're going to be talking about a few other apps, but, you guys are clicked on this for PrizePicks, so I am going to give you 5 PrizePicks plays. So let's do it. All right, so jumping into the PrizePicks desktop screen here, I got the first play pulled up, but first of all, if you're not on PrizePicks and you want to sign up as a new user, use code RichPicks. That's my code. It's going to be a great way to support the channel, but you're also going to get $50 put into your PrizePicks account just by betting $5. So you bet $5, they're going to load you up with 50. And again, you're a great way to support the channel using my code. You also get a free month of my Discord if you use my code, so kind of a win-win scenario. But let's talk about Tony Pollard. He's going to be my first play in this game. I don't really trust Will Levis. Miami's passing defense has shown, better numbers so far than their rushing defense. And Pollard's had a pretty good year. The last game against Green Bay, they didn't rush the ball very much at all the entire game. So he had a stinker, kind of a bounce back opportunity for him. So a lot of things kind of pointed me in the direction of Pollard. You could go to his rushing and receiving yards, but I just don't love the, Miami defense here with him getting receiving yards. He did last year when he played them. If you want to put that into account. But again, I'm just kind of landing in the rushing yards, and we'll talk more about that. But that's going to be the first play. Let's go into his outlier page. If you're interested in any of the tools, this is Outlier, one of my favorite tools out there. You can get a free week if you want to sign up and just try it out. No harm, no foul if you want to cancel it. That's also going to translate to a free week of my Discord, so kind of a win-win there. Again, just kind of incentivizing you guys to see, hey, you can do this research too, and it makes it look really cool. So if you like sports, you can see all these stats and everything, very color-coded and easy interface. But here's Pollard, to 82 yards of rushing the first game, then he had 62, and then again the stinker down with 14 against Green Bay. Only 11 rushing plays in that entire game. They were down the whole game. Now, they're 2.5-point underdogs in this game, but, we know the quarterback situation for the Dolphins isn't, it's kind of up in the air. No Tua, obviously. They went with Skylar Thompson. He looked horrible, and now they're going out with another one. So we'll see if he can do any better. But if they do find themselves up in this game, Pollard probably going to ground and pound a little bit more than if they had, if they were trying to come back in this game. So I do like the upside here for Pollard, especially if they find themselves with the lead in this one. And then you see the rushing yards allowed for Miami, 25th ranked, 108 yards to be had. So for Pollard, someone that's been hitting this line, last 10 games, obviously going back to last year, 6 of the last 10 games. If you want to look at 2023, he was able to go over this in 61% of those games, very much around this 50-yard line a lot of the times. But again, we just need 53, and I think he can get there for us. So really liking Tony Pollard. I want to point out, if you're on Underdog or Betr, if you want to check out some other apps, again, links in the description for all those. You're going to get deposit matches up to $1,000 for Underdog. For Betr, I think it's $200, and there's plenty of other apps down there. They have this at 51.5, so if you want to attack a little bit more value, you definitely want to take them over there. But 52.5, I don't mind that, just because my favorite projection model has them way over this. 58.72 is what they're expecting for the rushing yards. And again, if you do want that receiving yards kind of cushion there, if you think he's going to get some in the air, you could go to the combo here as well. So I do like Tony Pollard. I don't trust Will Levis a ton, and Miami's passing defense has been a little bit better than the rushing in terms of the numbers this year. So I'm landing on Tony Pollard for Tennessee, and it's going to be our first play of the day. And then moving along to the Miami side of things, I'm sticking with the running back because I talked about it. Skylar Thompson looked horrible for Miami. Now they're going out with Tyler Huntley, and his numbers are way down. His passing yards is at like 168. Tyreek Hill's lines are like 50. Waddle's lines are like 30. I just don't like what the numbers are saying, and the potential for a lot of yards through the air, especially considering the Tennessee Titans defense is weaker against the ground, against the rush, than they are in the air. So I'm sticking with Devon Achane, the running back over here. 14.5 fantasy score is where I'm landing. I think he's going to have a heavy workload, especially, again, you kind of the 2.5 point spread here. If this game's close, if Miami is up down the stretch of the game, you can kind of talk yourself into them having a bigger workload. But I think he's going to get in the end zone, which is kind of why I like the fantasy score even more. The rushing receiving touchdown line, you could go to that, but I would take this one, obviously, because Hopkins is just an added boost there. So definitely take this combo if it's still available, then rather than just his line. But yeah, I think he's going to get in the end zone. I like the fantasy score. Even if he doesn't get in the end zone, I still think he could probably get there if he gets like a ton of carries. So let's go into his outlier page here. You can see, where am I? Rushing yards. I just want to kind of point out the fact that the Tennessee Titans defense, third ranked for passing, 139.3 yards on average, but they're 20th ranked in rushing defense. So definitely a weaker rushing defense in terms of the numbers so far this year. And without Mostert as well, Achane is going to get another boost there. Pretty sure Mostert's out this game. But again, just the quarterback situation's not looking good. Maybe they just give it to Achane and tell him to run. Hopefully, hope for the best there. So let's go to his fantasy score because I want to see the hit rate, show you guys that. So far, he's cruised over this in 2 games. Didn't get there against Seattle, and it's tough to get there when you only have 3 points. So no score there. Still 8.8 fantasy points. So I do like to see that. Obviously, didn't rush the ball a ton in that game. But yeah, he's obviously capable of crushing this line. And if he gets in the end zone, that's kind of what we're looking for. In terms of 2023, you're not going to see a huge hit rate. I think he's going to get a ton more touches this year as he did last year. And again, with no Mostert, you can see right here, Mostert's still questionable, I guess, but it doesn't look like he's going to play, and that's just an added boost for Achane. Going over to RotoWire too, you can see that the rushing yards, they're projecting the under here, but it's kind of cool to see that they are projecting the over for fantasy score, which means that I think they also think that he's going to get in the end zone. 0.56 is their projection on the 0.5 line there. So another data point pointing in the right direction there. So I'm kind of landing on his fantasy score. You could go to the touchdowns. I like this, but I think he's going to have a lot of touches today. And again, a lot of things pointing in the right direction. He's kind of the safe bet for Miami today. So those are going to be my plays for the first game here, just going to both running backs. I do also want to point out for Achane here, a lot of these other books that have his fantasy score are up at 15.3 even, 16 over on Bet Online. So a lot of books are a little bit higher than this 14.5 line. Just another good data point there. And then I just want to point out the fact that there might not be a lot of offense in this game. 37 is where the line's at for the total points. That's very low. As you can see, it's one of the lowest on the list for even this going into next week, but that's low. So it might not be the funnest game to watch in the world, but I do think the running backs are going to have the most of the production here for both sides. And then moving into the next game here, we got Detroit versus Seattle. And I'm starting with the Lions, and it's going to be Laporta, who hasn't had a great game so far this year. I'm going to his fantasy score. I'll show you why in a second here. But you could also go to his receiving yards if you want to do that at 39.5. I think both these are pretty good. He hasn't had that, kind of breakout game that we were accustomed to last year. And he was a little banged up last week, but I think he should be ready to go. And we'll see in the stats that the numbers say that, tight ends are a little bit of a weak spot for the Seattle defense, who has been really good at not allowing a whole lot of receiving yards. So let's look at his outlier page here. I've got his receiving yards pulled up first just so I can show you those numbers. He's gone over this in 1 of 3 games. His fantasy score he hasn't hit once this year. But again, kind of a bounce back spot for him coming off a little bit of an injury. And you look right here, the Seattle receiving yards defense. To tight ends, you're going to see a nice green number. 29th ranked, 57.3 receiving yards to tight ends. It's a great spot for Laporta to kind of get in there. Versus their overall being 3rd ranked. They don't allow a ton to wide receivers. That would mean in running backs. So there is a little bit of a weak spot to Laporta here. And for someone who hasn't had that breakout game, maybe they really do try to feed him. And we've seen him and Goff have that connection dating back to last year. You can see 65% hit rate in games going over that receiving yards line. And then for his fantasy score last year, he went over in 70% of games. So a little bit of a boost there. One of the reasons I'm kind of leaning fantasy score. The other reasons are going into DG Fantasy. This is showing us all the market value. Again, awesome tool. Check out any of the tools. You're going to get 50 or 25% off your first month if you want to use my code down below. Definitely check that out. And we're seeing, 9.5, they're saying take the over. They're giving it a percent chance to hit. Why is that? All these other books at around 9.8, 9.9, even up to 10.2 on some books. So they're saying, maybe a little bit too low based on where PrizePicks has their line. You'll also see that the receiving yards right around where it should be, but some books over, at 40.5 if you want to get a little bit of an edge there for Laporta there. So I like that. And then last but not least, his RotoWire projection model. They're expecting 43.71 yards on a 39.5 line. So again, another thing pointing in the right direction, but they're also projecting 10.64 and a 9.5 fantasy score line. you could go either way on this line. I'm going to go with the fantasy score, but I do like Laporta. Hopefully he gets a breakout game. I need him for fantasy this week too, so kind of an extra incentive to me to bet on this. But yeah, I like Laporta for the Lions tonight. And then moving on to our last two picks here, it's going to be a nice correlated stack for the Seahawks. And it's going to be Geno Smith. Not going to show too much about him, but he's gone over in 2 of 3 games so far this year. I'm taking his fantasy score at 16.0. A lot of books are at 17, 17.4 even, all higher than the 16.0 line over on PrizePicks. So we're getting great market value there. But also just looking at the defense for the Lions, the numbers are showing a lot more passing yards against them than rushing yards. Rushing yards, they've actually ranked 3rd so far in yards allowed per game on the ground. So in terms of a 46.5 point total for this game, should be a decent amount of offense, and just hoping that a lot of that comes through the air. And I think Geno Smith is capable of doing that. Last year when he played this team, he was able to crush this line as well. So I like the fantasy score for Geno Smith. Who do I pair him up with, though? That's kind of the question that we're going to talk about right here. DK Metcalf, obviously the most targets, has the highest upside, can get 40-yard, 50-yard receptions, and we've seen him do that in both of the last 2 games. Smith-Njigba, ton of targets so far this year. I think this number is a little bit inflated based on that New England game where he had like 12 receptions. And then Tyler Lockett here at 17, 16.8% of the target share. That's who I'm going to kind of land on, dating back to last year's matchup with them, but also kind of the consistency of where he's been at with his receptions and targets and his hit rate. So he's gone over in 2 or 3 games, crept over in that game last week. 7 targets, 8 targets, and then 2 targets in that New England game when it was the Metcalf and Smith-Njigba show. But I do like to see what he did last year, and especially the head-to-head with this Detroit team. It was like the first game of the year or second game of the year. He got 59 yards and he had 10 targets, which was more than Metcalf and more than Smith-Njigba. So I kind of like that scenario as well. He's also the lowest in terms of the total yardage for this game at 43.5. So if he does get 6, 7, 8 targets, I think he's going to be able to crush this line. Last thing I'll show you guys is the projection model here. 43.5, they're projecting 45.26. So another kind of good thing leaning in the right direction. But I would not mind if you went to Metcalf or Smith-Njigba for that matter. But that's the way that I'm going to kind of roll it out here is Geno Smith over his fantasy score, and then also Tyler Lockett over his 43.5 receiving yards. And that's going to be the 5 plays. Again, at least one guy from each team. And 2 games of Monday Night Football. You can't really beat that. So that's going to do it for this one. Again, 5 picks out there for you guys. You don't have to take all 5 of them, but if you like the breakdown for one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, all of them, just take whatever you want. It's ultimately your choice at the end of the day. I do like that stack with Geno and Lockett there. But again, you could pick one of the wide receivers differently if you wanted to do that. I think there's just going to be a lot of yards for Geno Smith to be had in the air. But yeah, it's going to do it for this one. If you liked the video, definitely go ahead and leave it a like. Comment something down below. Just tells YouTube to push this out a little bit more. And then subscribe for more content like this. I'm trying to get back on every single day. This weekend I had a busy one, so wasn't able to upload as much as I wanted to. But in the Discord, we're always ripping out plays. So if you're interested in the Discord community where a bunch of like-minded people are in the same thing, trying to win together, put their minds together, talk about lines, whatever it might be, it's a lot of fun. So you can check out that in the link in the description as well. Sign up for Outlier. You're going to get a free week if you want to do that. DG Fantasy is an awesome tool. All the different sports books, whether it's Betr, Sleeper, Chalkboard, Underdog, PrizePicks, take advantage of the promotions that they're giving out. And that's going to do it for me. I'll see you guys tomorrow, Tuesday. It's going to be MLB because it's got postseason baseball. I think it's going to start tomorrow. So we'll be betting on that a little bit. And then obviously Thursday night we'll be here before we know it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.